Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to the WEDF interview segment. This is the voice of the WEDF, Frank Dawg here, joined alongside the Hawaiian, Matt Eichorn. Matt Eichorn, would you care to introduce yourself?
I am the money-making man. I have hashtag millions of dollars and all that jazz.
The Chief of Staff.
That's right.
The man who won the $1 million bounty at WEDF Rebellion, and I'd like to say, have you spent any of that money yet?
Well, of that initial $1 million, I'd say that it's probably all been spent here and there because, there's money. There's just things that need to be purchased and all that. But on top of that $1 million, being the chief of staff of Layfield Incorporated, came with a multi-million-dollar contract. So that first $1 million was just the beginning.
It's not an ironclad contract, is it?
No, it's strictly professional, and as far as myself and Mr. Layfield are concerned, we speak to each other as equals.
Well, at one point, though, you were not even close to being on the likes of JBL's level, or Stone Cold Steve Austin, or The Rock, or John Cena, or Hulk Hogan. You were, at one point, just beginning in the WEDF, you were making cameos on Raw before DCO started, helping Suspect out or competing for the hardcore title. What was going through your mind when you first joined the roster, and what do you go back looking on from that point on?
Well, back then, I didn't even, the thought of being in WEDF hadn't even crossed my mind. My only intention was to help out a friend. At the time, I was very close to the Suspect. And so, I basically just wanted to make sure that he knew that I had his back. And it didn't matter if I was a part of the roster or not. So that's really kind of just what it was. I was just helping out a friend. My intention with that wasn't really to join the roster, but, sometimes things just work out in certain ways.
At that point, though, you were actually beginning on commentary. You were joining the likes of Smokey and RJ's brother, who he told to shut up several times on commentary.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I was just new to everything. I really just wanted to, I wasn't trying to really fit into any certain area. It was just that, knowing certain people and being around them when they were doing certain things, I just kind of got tossed into the mix, and then eventually it just became a thing where, it just came to a point where I was just part of the group.
Right, and then your first opportunity really came when the former I need to say this right this time. Developmental brand, the now defunct DCO, came about, and you were signed to that brand. What was going through your mind when you first signed to that developmental brand?
Well, when I first signed onto it, I was still very close friends with the Suspect. So my goal there, my thoughts there were that with him being an active WEDF roster superstar at that time, perhaps somewhat one way or another, I'd be able to use that connection to pull myself up into the main roster as well.
But when you were tagging it with Suspect, even though you were in the spotlight, like undefeated at 1-3, it wasn't really getting you anyone on the roster. and then you decided to join forces with Oshadex. What was the reason why you betrayed Suspect, and why did you join up with Oshadex?
I think that well, for me, what it was I mentioned before that I was hoping to use my connection with the suspect to get into WEDF into the main roster, but when I noticed that that wasn't helping, and I noticed the reaction that I was getting from the WEDF universe, I knew that I had to make my own. I had to make a big step. I had to make a decision that would that would basically decide one way or the other. It would see my fate. So
Instead of facing people like Rick the Fishman or Gregory Black or Johnny Rocker or even Submission Sweeto, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna end DCO and make an impact as soon as possible.
Absolutely, and I feel like, and I just feel like, um, if DCO was going to go out with only one or two people, coming out of it successfully, I needed to make sure that I was one of those people, or if it was only one person, then I was that one person, and so that's essentially what I did. I made the move to team up with Oshijax, and we essentially, we made all the decisions, and ultimately we set the tone to bring us into the main roster of WEDF.
Y'all even took out Rick the Fisherman out of the Royal Reckoning match. Can you Oshadex explain why? Because he felt like Rick the Fisherman was like not worthy of that. Why? What was your reasons for taking him out of that Royal Reckoning match?
It's the exact same thing. It was something we actually discussed beforehand. Rick the Fisherman shouldn't have been in that match. It should have been either one of us or both of us. And so if it wasn't going to be either one of us, then it was going to be nobody from DCO. That was just so we were calling the shots, and nobody was doing anything to stop us. So that's just how it was.
And no one from DCO actually represented in that Royal Reckoning match. But fast forward later on, you
Okay.
and Oshadex were commentating and making an impact, and then you were wrestling Suspect at the first WrestleMania with Oshadex in your corner. Made you feel like that one of you was well, we'll get to that later, but made you
Okay.
felt like that Oshadex was being in your corner, and you were facing the Suspect like a grudge match. What was going through your mind when you were facing the Suspect there?
I mean, there was a lot of pressure to win that match because like I said, ultimately I just wanted to set up an opportunity for myself and even for Oshijex to get into WEDF now that since we were associates, and so it was just a lot of pressure. But I did my best to keep focused, and we had a plan that ultimately worked.
And the plan was actually Oshajack really wasn't supposed to be getting involved in that match. You actually told him, "This is my match. This is my deal."
Yeah, that was the original thought. I wanted to if I was going to win that match, I wanted to win it knowing that I deserved to be on the main roster for WEDF. That's what I wanted, but more importantly, I wanted to win.
All right. Then after you beat Suspect at WrestleMania, you and Oshajax continued your group as Zack Starr joined forces with you, and y'all helped Dolph Ziggler out when Dolph Ziggler felt like he was being cast away over on Raw, losing to Danny Jackpot, Kofi Kingston, Rob Van Dam, and Jeff Hardy, among others. What did you want to do to help out like Zack Starr and Dolph Ziggler before you cut off to Raw?
I mean, I think that me personally, I just saw things in them that I saw in myself. I saw, underutilized talent. I saw um, two people that deserved more than they were getting, and so um, we came to them and we said that we wanted them to join up with us, and that basically they could decide their own fate, and that's basically what we did to get them in um, was to just let them know that they can be in control of the decisions that center around their careers, and that sometimes if somebody doesn't want to give you something, you just have to take it.
But when there's a big group like that, sometimes egos can get in the way, or people can say stuff that can rub you all the wrong way. Uh, some people call it Ochadex a lackey, or you a lackey, or even Star a lackey. Just causing a group turmoil, which resulting in you saying screw y'all to the group and moving to Raw. What do you think really was that the reason that caused the group's downfall, or what was your
Uh,
reasons for jumping ship to Raw?
I think that because of the comments that were made outside of the group by other people, like you mentioned, it caused some tension within the group, and I think I also think that the attitude between all the members of the group, kind of were just like the all the anger and the frustration was kind of building up, and so it just got to a point where the only option I had was to walk away.
Right. And while you were in that group, you were in a match with Kane at that one point. No, not Kane, but Daniel Bryan. Then Kane comes out, decides to choke slam both of you. What was your reaction at first when Kane came out in that match?
Well, I mean, I didn't have any connection to Kane, so I figured that Kane was gonna come out and he was gonna do something to Daniel Bryan. I mean, I'm in the mindset that if anybody that everybody personally wants to do something to physically harm the well being of Daniel Bryan. So it didn't surprise me in the least. At least that's what my initial thought was.
And then he choke slams you when you were on mic that time for like you had a mouthpiece kind of like Abraham Washington, and you were like, I'm not expecting this. But anyway, we'll
Right.
get to Daniel Bryan since he's kind of connected with Kane. Like to give your opinions on him and like a simple opinion of him, like one word that can describe him.
Describe Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, and then we'll move on.
If I could describe him in one word, it would just be overrated.
All right,
That's I mean that's the simplest way I can describe it.
that like the IWC.
By him, by some people in the locker room, a lot of people claim things that just aren't true, and I become the bad guy because I'm the one who points out the truth.
All right, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
Well, we'll go on to your impact on Raw. You're defeating the likes of oh god, oh my goodness, Submission Sweeto, Vito, Johnny Rocker, all these people who you felt like weren't in your class, and the general manager of Raw, Armando Estrada, really didn't give you a reason why he was putting you against these people who really you felt weren't in the same level as you. So, what was going through your mind when Armando Estrada was doing this to you? And
It was just a level of frustration. I feel like if everybody does something for a reason, and if you're not willing to admit those reasons, then you shouldn't deserve the right to do the things that you do. And I expressed openly when I first came to the Raw roster, when I first started competing on Raw, that my goal at that time, which was a pretty high bar to set at that time, was to become the United States champion. Um, our Strata knew that. Everybody knew that. It was no secret. The problem was that, knowing that that was my goal, he did everything in his power to prevent that from happening, and so it just made me angry.
did you want to find a reason why Armando Estrada was doing this to you?
Well, I mean, I wanted to know why. I think a lot of people wanted to know why, but ultimately, I wanted to find the reasoning behind it so that I can put an end to it.
That's right. And then eventually you found out that he was somehow racist despite being Cuban. He was trying to hold you down.
Right. I
He was
mean,
trying,
races.
he
Go
was trying to
ahead.
hold down the black man. Eventually he even calls Kofi Kingston the Money in the Bank contract.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me that as a Cuban man he would be racist toward black people. I think the thing that surprised me more than anything was that um, the thing that surprised me more than anything was that as somebody who is like half African American, half black, that I was his main target. That was the thing that confused me more than anything. But it didn't matter why he was doing it, and
Did you make a comment that ticked him off or something, or was he just really just upset that you spoke out against him? Do you think?
I think I think honestly his problem was just that I wasn't willing to take the initial crap that he was giving out.
So basically, he was being more like a dictator.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like someone spoke out against him. That's kind of like how Wu-Tang Man was when he spoke out against Michael Cole on ECCW.
Right.
But anyway, you were trying to pursue that United States Championship match. You at one point felt like that you couldn't reach that goal, and Armando Estrada wanted you to hold that TV title. And when you won that TV title, you were like, "I'm going to prove that I'm going to make this TV title mean more than the United States Championship."
Well, that was exactly what my goal was. I feel like if he was going to try to hold me down by giving me an opportunity at the television championship, which was clearly not on the same level as the United States Championship at that time, and really still isn't, but my mindset was that it didn't matter what championship I was holding or who I was fighting. I was going to hold it. I was going to hold it like it was the United States Championship. I was going to defend it like it was the United States Championship, and I was going to make people believe that this title meant more than it did when I first when it first came to my possession.
Right. And this is a little off topic, but all this is like CAW fave. So this is not Eichorn speaking in his WEDF wrestler character.
Correct.
Not the butts and the stream Eichorn from the New Legacy stream or anything like that. But anyway, you were going to be competing in a 6-man challenge for the TV championship then at Summerfest, and then you learn that Armando Estrada takes you out in favor of one of his boys in Kane. What was going through your mind in that match when you were clearly saying, that should have been me destroying 5 men, like Paul London, Evan Warren, Suspect, etc.?
Right. I mean, it just was more frustration. I mean, it wasn't anything new. It was just that it was clear that Estrada was wising up to the fact that his initial tactics weren't going to work. So he was really doing everything he could to try to push my buttons, and it was working.
Right, and you were like, this should have been me destroying all these men.
Right, because I mean, I'm not gonna undersell any of the people that were in that match, but I feel like even back at that point, I would have been the best competition for any of them.
Right, but anyway, you were not in that match at Summerfest. You still wanted to prove a point to Estrada. Eventually, you did win the television championship. So what was your reaction when you won that television championship for that first time?
Honestly, the championship itself, it meant less to me than the fact that I was able to put away Kane, because Kane at that time was doing anything he could to.
I mean, you won that Great American Brawl.
Right, and he was just doing everything he could to, to make sure that anything Estrada did worked, and at times he succeeded. And so when it came time for he and I to get in the ring one-on-one, I just wanted to make sure that I put a big dent in their plans, and I just wanted to make sure that they knew that they couldn't take me out as easily as they thought they could.
Right, and then after the defeating Kane, somehow the Big Show got involved after selling out on Evan Bourne. What were your thoughts at that time when Evan Bourne was sold out by the Big Show at bragging rights before your whole deal with the Big Show?
Back then it was something that I didn't. It was back then, because I was so new to everything. It was just something that I didn't understand, and it was something that I didn't. It was something that I just couldn't logically put into my head. But that was back then. That was my mindset.
Right, and then Big Show came over to Raw. aligned himself with Estrada, creating some type of unstoppable group, and then the Big Show took that television championship away from you just like that.
Right. So, um, yeah.
So, and then it led to you finally getting your match with Armando Estrada at Survivor Series when Estrada kind of let it out saying, I could whoop your ass at any time. And you're like, well, why don't you back it up? And then Vince McMahon helped you out there, too.
Right. Vince McMahon has always been, at least in WEDF, he does a lot of things behind the scenes. You don't really see him much, but he does step in when he has to, and that was one of those times where he did have to step in. Estrada was more than abusing his power, so I was very happy to get that opportunity to face Estrada when I did get it.
Right. And basically, Vince McMahon was tired of the acts that Armando was doing, especially to you and Kofi Kingston, and kind of really not helping King Booker out at the time either. Kind of just putting him with Kofi Kingston and all that. But then at Survivor Series, you finally got your chance to get your hands on Armando Estrada. What were you thinking going in that match right there? What were you planning on doing? Since it was like a steel cage, we're gonna make it short or make it a long, drawn ass whooping, or what were your plans are for that?
Well, ultimately, I wanted to be able to win the match, and I didn't take him lightly at all. But knowing that it was a steel cage, knowing that nobody could interfere, my plan was just to have a good time with it. It was a long time coming, that ass whooping. So when I got in the cage with him, I savored it is what I did, and I did it not just for myself, but for all those other guys that you mentioned that Estrada was also trying to hold back.
Right. And
so
then, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so there was to me there was just a lot of responsibility on my shoulders to represent all those guys.
Right. But after you beat Estrada, you finally felt free, and you finally felt like it was time for you to pursue the United States Championship, which I believe was actually held by MVP, a man that you kind of turned into when you were United States Champion. But we'll get to that later. But while MVP was United States Champion, he was running away from fights, running away from everyone. So what did you think about MVP as the champion at that time?
I just felt like, I think everybody knows whether you are a champion or you're not, or whether you've ever held a championship or not. Everyone knows that when you hold a championship, you become a big target for a lot of people. So many people go after each championship. So as a champion, you have to be not just prepared, but you have to accept the responsibility that people are going to challenge you and come after you. So when he refused to, when he kept trying to get out of fights with me, that didn't seem like a champion to me.
Right. And before you went to Survivor Series, you were in a match with Alberto Del Rio. You didn't really care about bragging rights until the stipulation came up by saying that there was a draft pick on the line. It was kind of like a must-win situation. Del Rio was kind of pushing your buttons at that time.
Right.
And he tried to assault you and act like this big bad guy. He's trying to go after Ocean Deck, trying to put the spotlight on him, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, etc. And you put him to rest before that, proving another point, retain that television championship. But under MVP, you felt like he was not a worthy champion, kind of feeling like he was cheating his way to the title. Finally earned your way to a title match against him at the Royal Rumble, but Booker T was trying to get involved too.
Yeah, and I didn't understand Booker T's involvement in the whole thing, but I wasn't going to complain about anything. I had finally earned my opportunity, and I wanted to prove to people that it didn't matter if it was against one person or two, or 10 people, that I was going to, prove that I'd still deserve to be a champion.
Right.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the case at the Rumble.
Right. I mean, before that, before or after, I think you were actually wanting to get in the ring with the for the WEDF Championship and was even in the ring with Brock Lesnar. What were your thoughts about going in the ring with Brock Lesnar at that time?
Well,
Because
Brock Lesnar.
you were backstage wanting to face Brock Lesnar. I think that was, I don't remember when it was, but it was sometime. You took him to the limit, but ultimately lost to the next big thing.
Right. I mean, the dude's massive, and there's
Like,
no surprise there.
What did you want to prove at that point by facing a beast like Lesnar?
I think I just wanted to prove to people that I wasn't scared to face anybody, and that you could put somebody like Brock Lesnar in front of me, and I'm going to go into that match.
Actually, you beat him by DQ at that point, but it was
right.
You didn't win the match though.
Right. No, but my point wasn't. It was less important for me to win that match, and more important for me to prove that I wasn't afraid to go into the match. Back at that point.
Right. And I think actually when you earned that United States Championship opportunity, you were in the ring with Samoa Joe and JBL, and you were actually opposed to JBL that time. Did you have any? And what were your thoughts on them at that time when you were facing the likes of those superstars?
Well, Samoa Joe is somebody that I've been compared to a lot over my time in WEDF and in other companies. And so he was somebody that I just wanted to. It was just always somebody that I wanted to get in the ring, just as a challenge. And then JBL at that time, I guess at that time, everything that I did was about proving something to somebody, and JBL has been around for a long time, and he's a very he's a good competitor. Even back then, I thought that he was a good wrestler and all that. It was just that these are two very formidable opponents, and I just wanted to prove something. Every time I got in the ring, I just wanted to prove something.
Right, and you were in the ring with Sheamus too, a man who was kind of in the same situation as you were, trying to make a name for himself as well. That was episode 145 Raw.
Right.
But we're getting back to MVP now. He won that United States Championship, retained it in several cheap ways. You finally get that opportunity at WrestleMania 2 in a six-pack challenge, knowing that you only had a 1/6 of an opportunity to win that match. But knowing that y'all ganged up on the MVP, knowing that his time was up, did you think that WrestleMania 2 was that opportunity to show who the real Matt Eichorn was?
For me, WrestleMania 2 felt like my last chance to get the United States Championship, and that if I couldn't win then it was going to be a long time before I could get that opportunity again, because obviously MVP wasn't going to retain. We made sure that, but there were still 5 other guys.
You were the one that eliminated him first from the match.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think those guys knew how badly I needed that. They were all aware that, because it wasn't something that we planned on. It was just we got in the ring and everybody's eyes were on MVP, so it was just an in the moment kind of thing. But
as the match progressed, I think you last eliminated Sheamus, I think, to win that match.
Yeah, Sheamus was the last guy to be for me to eliminate.
I mean, you even used the Un-Hawaiian Nightmare to win that match. Knowing that was probably your best bet to take down Sheamus.
Well, I mean, he's a big guy, and it was the dude's hard to knock down and to keep down. So, and I hadn't done that move in WEDF in a while, so I pretty much had to pull out everything to win that title, and that's exactly what I did.
Right. But after you won the United States Championship, you continue to roll on Raw, defeating the likes of Kane at the Slammies. But at that time, there was an incident with the Slammy Awards in which Zack Ryder won Superstar to Look Out For.
Right. Well, I honestly, I will admit, when the Slammies were in the voting stage, I thought to myself that I had the real potential to win 2 of the Slammies, and the first one was the Superstar to Look Out For, but the other one was also, I believe, most improved. It's the one that Oshajax ended up walking away with, and when he did win that Slammy, I didn't have any problem with it. He and I, we didn't have identical paths, but we were both kind of on a roll at that point, and I believe at that point he had already become Intercontinental Champion.
Right.
So he did deserve that. But when people said that the superstar to look out for the next year was Zack Ryder, and he hadn't done anything. He hadn't really done anything in WEDF to warrant any kind of real attention.
The only
That
thing he really did was win the tag team titles, but then after that he turned his back on De Niro and joined forces with Hawkins, but really never did anything really worthy while you were winning matches left and right, winning the United States Championship. You kind of felt betrayed by the WEDF universe, would you say?
that's exactly what it was. I felt like these people didn't recognize, people didn't recognize who deserved the true recognition. So when I lost that, that was kind of a. I mean, it was like it was that was all it took for me to really switch gears.
Now, at that point, you can kind of congratulate Zack Ryder, but you knocked him out. But you kind of apologize, say you were in the moment. Did you ever think that you were going to turn on the fans like you did later on in the season at that point?
Um, at that time, it wasn't something that I thought about, but it was just the fact that um, like every time I thought about the fact that he was walking around with a slammy that should have been mine, it just ate at me, and I wouldn't let it go, and that's what caused that's what caused my change of heart, and what caused me to, as you call it, a lot of people say that I turned my back on the WEDF universe, but my take on it is that they turned on me before I could turn on them. Um, so I just felt like if these people weren't going to acknowledge the things that I do, and um, if they weren't going to kind of give me the recognition that I deserved, then there was no reason for me to care about what they thought anymore, or what they did, or what they said, and that I needed to start worrying about the things that I cared about.
Right. And then you faced Stone Cold Steve Austin in a match on WEDF Raw, in which you took the Texas Rattlesnake to the absolute limit. But after the match, you tried to hold your hand out for respect for Stone Cold Steve Austin, who returned the favor by giving you a Stone Cold Stunner. What were your thoughts after the show after Stone Cold did that to you?
Well, I
Did
after
it
after
help?
getting
Did it help trigger your distaste for the fans and how they supported people? Because Stone Cold Steve Austin was cheered for that.
right, I actually that didn't do too much for me. I kind of look back at that, and I blame myself for that. It's something that anybody who ever tries to extend their hand to Austin will get be repaid with a stunner, and so that was just, I think, as someone who was still new to everything, it was just I wasn't thinking clearly, and so I actually didn't. That particular moment didn't really do too much to change my mind on anything, but it didn't help either.
Right. And then after that Raw, that was really your only loss as the United States champion. I mean, you defeated Booker T on episode 179 Raw. I mean, you just continued steamrolling through the action. You even defeated. You even teamed up with Samoa Joe to beat MVP and JBL. Amazing how things turn out then between you and Joe and JBL. But
Right? Yeah.
but in that time you were embroidered with a feud with MVP. Matt Eichorn was busy with Joe was busy with JBL, and
Right.
MVP was making some comments about you that you really didn't like about him. You actually made the man walk out on the company after beating him at Lashing Back.
Well, I mean, that wasn't my intention to make him quit, but I think some people can't take losses well. Um, so when he couldn't beat me one on one, I do what I do. I didn't blame him for the complaint that that he lost the championship the way he did at WrestleMania because we all kind of ganged up on him, which is true. Um, so when I gave him that rematch and I gave him the one-on-one opportunity, I knew that this is my time to keep him quiet, to shut him up.
Shut
And
up for MVP.
right, and when he quit, that surprised me, but it didn't affect me in any way. I honestly cared. I didn't care at all that he was leaving.
Right. And then after being MVP at Lashing Back, you continue your role, beating Ted DiBiase on episode 191 Raw. And then on episode 195 Raw, Christian at that time was embroiled in this huge losing streak. You beat him in a match. And at that point, you were getting kind of tired of the fans' opinions, still going around, still being a fan favorite. But at the time, you were starting to feel like, these fans are really getting on my nerves. Christian's getting on my nerves with this complaining, saying I can win these matches. Well, can you explain more into that?
It just, I was just, it was all just so annoying, and I was putting up with, like, as far as with the fans, I was putting up with stuff that I didn't have to, and it took me that long to finally realize that I didn't have to put up with it, and so that's, I stopped caring, and I stopped listening to what they had to say because they never
And
really had it. They, even when I was trying to garner their support, they never had anything good to say about me.
well, as success continues, success can sometimes go to your head. You eventually got intertwined with not just Christian, but Shelton Benjamin as well, as you felt like you were the best at that position as the United States champion. You even issued an open challenge at Barely Legal, in which Shelton Benjamin took you to the limit.
Right. The reason why I did that is because I believe at that same time there was another event going on. I can't remember which one it was, but there was another event that was going on at the same time, and as the United States champion, I wasn't actually booked for it. And even though I didn't care about what the fans thought, I still wanted to prove to myself that I deserved to carry the United States championship, and so that meant
Not you were not booked on Last Resort. As
that's what it was. It was Last Resort, yeah. And so because I wasn't booked on Last Resort, I needed to do something to prove to myself that I still deserved to hold the title, and that was defending it. So I kind of just that was what I did, and and I at that time I commended Shelton for stepping up to the challenge, but ultimately, on that night he failed, and and he just never let that go.
right.
Um,
So continue on. Yeah, it was Last Resort. So that was before Last Resort, and you were like, "I'm going to prove to the world why I'm the best as the United States champion." So continue on. You can still continue to turn your back on the fans. Christian is in your way. Did you think Christian was unworthy of a United States Championship opportunity?
he didn't do anything to prove that he deserved it. When I earned my first United States Championship opportunity, first of all, I had to go through months of torture to get to the point of being offered the opportunity to earn the opportunity for the United States Championship. So I had to go through like step after step after step, and I was successful in all those. Ultimately, through all that stuff, and so when I got my first opportunity at the title, I earned it. I deserved it. I was winning the matches. I was winning the important matches that gave me that contendership. But Christian was just losing match after match after match, and then he was rewarded with an opportunity of my championship. And I
Right, and
felt
then
I was insulted when they gave him that opportunity.
and people that you really show a dislike for that the fans really like Daniel Bryan and Zack Ryder were getting booked on matches, and you felt like, why am I not being booked on these matches, on these shows? Why am I being held cast aside? Why I've been a dominant United States champion while some of these guys like Ryder get a fluke victory, like you would probably say in the Battle Royal, and gets a Intercontinental title shot with Oshidex.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was just I didn't understand like the logic backstage and with the management. It didn't make any sense with me, and I didn't know why. I felt like by holding the United States Championship, I was making the statement that I was, with this group of up and comers and with this group of people trying to get to the top, I was the one that proved the best, and I did that not only by winning the championship, but by successfully retaining it several times, and making the decision to defend it when I didn't have to.
Right. And then on episode 214 Raw, we saw Shelton Benjamin beat Christian to, I believe, earn a championship shot against. No, Shelton Benjamin. Yeah, Shelton Benjamin actually beat Christian in the singles match, and I believe, and then Christian kind of. I'm getting stuttering here, but Shelton Benjamin was on a roll here, and you felt like that Christian wasn't worthy. Did you feel like Shelton Benjamin was more worthy than Christian at that time? That's what I'm trying to ask.
At that time, I felt like Shelton Benjamin was doing what he needed to do to prove that he deserved the opportunity at the title. Um, whether or not it's like it didn't matter who was challenging me for the title. I was confident in my ability to retain. But I felt like between Shelton Benjamin and Christian, Shelton deserved it a lot more than Christian did, and so I had no problem. I had no problem defending against him.
Fast forward to Night of the Champions Extreme Rules. Christian actually beats you and Shelton Benjamin in a triple threat team match to become United States champion, and you were not too happy about it because Christian won that match, throwing you and Shelton Benjamin off the ladder and then capitalizing. What were your thoughts going after that match in which Christian won that?
Well, going into the match, I felt like Christian had an unfair advantage because everybody knows that if there's one match type that Christian excels at, it's any match that involves, it's any kind of ladder match or a TLC match or, those kind of things. Because, with TLC,
Shelton picked the stipulation for that match.
Right, and so it didn't make any sense to me like that. Shelton, I had Shelton, I respected Shelton up until that point, and I felt like, why would you give Christian, ammunition against us, because he has that advantage of having the experience to be in those matches and all that, and I didn't understand what they were trying to do, but it was clear that something was going on. I felt like I was kind of being cornered as the champion. These two guys were I felt like these two guys were conspiring against me, and I felt like it wasn't fair to me that that Shelton would do something to prove that he had Christian's back or that he respected. I didn't care about who he respected. You pick a match type that's going to work best for you. If he had picked a match type that in the end would have given him the advantage, then I wouldn't have had a problem with that because he earned that ability to make that match, and that was his decision. But he gave Christian the opportunity. He gave Christian a reason to take advantage of the opportunity, and that's what ended up happening, and that's why I lost the championship.
So you didn't feel like that they were ganging up on you, trying to take advantage and make you lose, because as the United States champion, or any champion, you've got to be ready for any battle that steps up to the plate against you.
Well, that's true, but I did feel like there was a level of I felt like there was a level of disrespect in that. It felt like when I walked into Night of Champions Extreme Rules, it was almost like the conversation between them was that they wanted to win, but more importantly, they wanted me to lose, and I thought that was disrespectful to me.
All I've got to say though is, as a champion, you've just got to be ready and have eyes in the back of your head. Christian, you thought might have gotten lucky there, but over the past couple of months, he proved that he was back on the right track. That win put him on the right track. Now on the 4-year special, you lost to Shelton Benjamin, and then Christian. He won an opportunity to face Christian, and you walked out on commentary there saying, "I had enough of this." So were you frustrated, or were you just what was going through your mind then when you were at the 4-year special? Which you just said, "I had enough."
I was just at a point where I was like the level of it was just a level of frustration that was building up, and it was bothering me that I wasn't able to do the things that I said that I would do and that I could do. And I know what I'm capable of, and I know that I'm capable of beating people like Shelton Benjamin. I've done it before, but for some reason he was getting the best of me, and I wasn't going
Were
to.
you underestimating Shelton Benjamin?
That night, I probably was that night. But the reason why I walked out was more because less because it had some to do with the fact that I lost. But I knew that the fans were going to the WDF universe was going to say things that quite frankly, I don't have to listen to, and so I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of letting them berate me with insults. So I did what I felt like doing, and that was walking out.
I mean, even your broadcast partner Oceadex laid some insults down to you, which you didn't like by saying yes, 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 and woo, 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 you blew it. And then Zack Ryder gets in your face, and then after that, you just stormed out of the arena and didn't show up for the rest of the night.
Well, when I left, when people saw me leave, I wasn't just going back to the locker room. I left the arena. I didn't. I drove out of the arena and I didn't turn back. Because
How close were you to hitting Ryder?
oh, if he had said one more thing, he would have been lying on the ground. That's for sure.
I guess some things you really shouldn't say to people. But anyway, going on to other matters.
Hmm.
Continue on. Raw. Uh, Christian Shelton Benjamin's United States Championship opportunity ended in a no contest. Um, Now you had a rematch clause in hand, but he felt like Shelton Benjamin was getting that opportunity over you when you had a rematch clause, and you were kind of like the Miz, saying, "I'm not going to have any of this." Why did you interfere in that match for? Is that really is that a reason why you did that, or is it more to it?
Yeah, the main reason behind it was that that was my United States championship opportunity, and then all of a sudden Shelton Benjamin was getting a title shot, and you know because and then I played it off in my head and I said, if Shelton does beat Christian, then all of a sudden now Shelton's the champion and Christian's also got a rematch clause, and that's going to get too confusing it's going to get too confusing, and I'm going to be thrown into another triple threat match that I don't need to be in. I wanted a one-on-one shot with Christian is what I wanted, and so I wanted to make sure that when I got my opportunity at the title, which I was going to get because I was going to, I would have gone legal. I would have gone the legal route if I had to, but um, I was going to get my opportunity, and when I did, I wanted to be with Christian because I wanted to prove that I could beat him. That was why I did not let Shelton Benjamin win that match.
So you felt like it was more to prove a point to Christian rather than let Shelton Benjamin win.
Yeah.
All right. So going on to other matters, leading on to that match, you, Shelton, and Christian were going at each other's throats. Christian eventually won that match at at WEDF Rebellion, and you felt like that you had nothing left to prove for the United States Championship division. Is that true?
I felt like if I was going to keep going after the championship, then I wasn't going to move forward like I had always wanted to do. Um, because I feel like my goal in WDF, no matter where I am, is to always move forward and move up. If I'm standing at the as the United States champion, I want to move up to to face higher talent and prove that I can beat those people. And so
But that
by losing to these people, that wasn't getting me anywhere. I had to do something that was going um, to elevate me.
well, in that case though, you were wanting to battle the likes of Christian and Shelton Benjamin on your own in a handicap match. CM Punk approaches you. He's having issues of his own, saying, "Well, why not two of us team together?" What were your thoughts when CM Punk asked you to team up with him?
Well, I had taken a long time stance on my dislike for tag team wrestling. Working with people. some of the things that we mentioned beforehand about my history with WEDF caused me to believe that when people work together and as a tag team, it shows it shows the weakness in both of those people. You have to rely on your partner to do certain things. They have to rely on you. And when you work in a singles match or in a triple threat or whatever, the only person you have to worry about is you. And if you don't win the match, then the only person you can blame is you. So, but when he came to me, it wasn't. It was a one-time thing, and quite frankly, I was just astonished that he cared, that he even gave a shit about me to make that opportunity, to give that, to come to me, because I felt like at that time that CM Punk was somebody that I had like a ton of respect for the dude. I still do, but it was somebody that in time I might deserve the right to work with him or compete against him, but I wasn't there yet. So when he came to me, that kind of opened my eyes as to where I was in the company and to what I was able to what I was capable of doing. So I really have him to thank for giving for making me realize that I was worth a lot more than what I was being dealt.
So is that what really caused your dislike for? What really triggered your dislike for tag team wrestling? Really?
Well, during the DCO days, both with my work with the suspect and with my work with Oshijax, um, I always had the position where I was doing a lot of the work, but I wasn't getting the credit for it, and so I felt like if
And
I'm going to get credit,
you even lost the tag team titles to the team of Zack Ryder and Elijah Burke at that time, in which Suspect took the loss.
right, and so I just felt like if I was going to take if I was going to lose a match, I wanted it to be because I didn't do enough to win the match. If I lose a match because somebody else got pinned that was supposed to represent me as a part of a team, that shows my weakness and it shows their weakness. I can only at that point I can only trust myself and nobody else.
So really, that really caused your dislike for tag team wrestling. You even said it on commentary that you didn't care, and like when some tag teams showed respect, like the Hardys versus DX, you applauded it. But then when Big Show turns on Evan Moore, he's like, "This is why I'm glad I'm not in tag team wrestling anymore." For example, right?
That's exactly right, because you mentioned like the Hardys, and you mentioned DX, and those guys have known each other for a long time, and more so, especially with DX, it's two guys that have established themselves as singles competitors that are, they can compete together and do things. And it's like,
Would you ever be open to another tag team run once you're more established?
I think that if the right person came to me, I would consider it, but it would be a rare thing for me to even consider it, let alone say yes. It would have to be the right person. It would have to be something that I can trust 100% to represent myself in the ring.
Because even when that was one of the reasons why Armando started dislike you too, because he was like, well, he's not going to follow my lead, so yeah, kind of continue on from that.
Right.
But anyway, you're on to Rebellion, and you lost in the triple threat to and Sheldon was the first eliminated, but then Christian got the upper hand of you for the first time, really. And what were your thoughts before that and before helping out JBL?
Well, I
Were you even thinking about JBL at that time, or they quote
well what ended up happening is going into the match, I knowing because I had the elimination rules, I knew that I could I kind of treated it the way that I treated the match at WrestleMania 2, where if I do the work in eliminating people, then I'm sealing my own fate and I can win the championship back. Once I lost, I went backstage and I was very angry. So, but I was surprised to see that Mr. Layfield was standing in my locker room. He actually came to me And at that point he had, it was so many, it was opportunity after opportunity for people to capture that bounty, and people were failing to do so. So when he came to me, he told me that he didn't know who was going to win his match, but it didn't matter because um, the important thing was that when the match was over, Samoa Joe was going to be tired, and that he was not going to be 100%. And he said that he trusted in me, that he knew that I could get the $1 million bounty done. And then he told me that if I succeeded, then there would be more in it than just the bounty. And it didn't take long for me to accept his offer. I mean, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't have anything else to do, so it was almost an immediate yes.
So you
And
kind of went in business for yourself, and really, you wanted $1 million, really.
I mean,
But
the money was a big part of it. But to know that John Bradshaw Layfield wanted to come to me to offer that opportunity. Um, it was a lot like the CM Punk thing. It showed it showed me my status in the company and where I deserve to belong. And so um, I just wanted to, I was just proving a point that, you know, if people don't think that I'm capable of doing certain things, then, look at what I did to Samoa Joe.
right. So basically, you were in to help JBL out, and um, did you have like a personal dislike for Samoa Joe at that point, or were you just there to help JBL out, or is there more to this?
Um, Once I started to speak with Mr. Layfield, I started to think about the way that people were viewing Samoa Joe. And I mentioned before that when I first came into the company that I respected Samoa Joe a lot, and I acknowledged his ability to compete. And I often compare myself to him, both in our build and in the way we compete. Um, but the problem was that people were acknowledging Samoa Joe's success in WEDF, and people were not doing the same thing for me. And so when Mr. Layfield did come to me, and I had this realization that I could be the one capable of taking out Samoa Joe. It was a large part of it was personal. I wanted him to realize that he wasn't the only dominant superstar in the company, and that someone out there did exist. There was someone out there that existed that was on his level. Um, but at the same time, it was a partnership. He came to me because he had something to offer me, and because I had something to offer him, and that's always how we've treated Layfield Incorporated, at
It's
least
like I
from our
scratch your back.
positions.
It's like I scratch your back, you scratch mine, type of deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And y'all were feeling like y'all were on the same level as JBL, which is why you later on had a WDF championship opportunity while JBL was grooming you in the next big thing. Speaking of which, when you came in WDF, did you ever think about challenging for the WDF championship at that point?
When I first walked in, that never crossed my mind, because I knew that I wasn't ready for it, and I knew that it would take time for me to get to that point. Um, but I believe that when I did get that opportunity to face Jeff Hardy for the title, um, you know, I took it because I knew that I was ready. I knew that I was ready for that opportunity. Whether or not I won, obviously I didn't win the match, but that doesn't mean that I'm not ready for that opportunity. I am, and I am. I think that I am still ready for, for me to get those opportunities again. And like you mentioned, Mr. Layfield has helped a lot with that. He's
He's
really,
he's
he's
probably
doing a
taught
great job with.
he's probably taught you a lot of the ins and outs of the business.
He's taught me about a lot of things that nobody would ever think about. Things that people don't realize. Especially if you aren't a part of. If you're not part of WDF, then you would know some of the things that go on.
Have you
And
ever
so
have you ever felt worried about letting him down? Like if like he's been grooming you to like maybe win King of the Ring to help Layfield Inc. out. You didn't get the job done there, thanks to mostly Samoa Joe, and then you kind of blame Samoa Joe for your loss against Jeff Hardy, and then remember you faced Samoa Joe in that uh, I don't know what to say that match at Summerfest in which it went out of
It was
control.
that wasn't a match. That was a fight.
Yeah, it was. They ran out of security for that match. You had clowns come in. You had jobbers come in. You at that time that hatred for Samoa Joe was just so big. Did you ever think that you were going to destroy him and end his career?
And that was my goal.
Were you or were you ever afraid of Samoa Joe? Like, every time
I,
you were in the ring with him, you backed out, or were you
I
facing him on your own terms, or what?
I wouldn't say that I was afraid of Samoa Joe. I think for me it was that I wanted to face him at the right time, and I wanted him to be as angry about with him as he was with me, and
So is that
so
why you blindsided attacking week after week after week, and then
that's why, yeah, I kept pushing him. I wanted him to push back, and I wanted that to be at Summerfest. So when we got in the ring, and people thought that was like, oh, I had to fight him. No, I absolutely wanted to fight him. I wasn't afraid of Samoa Joe. I wanted him to be at his angriest and his best because I wanted people to see that even at Samoa Joe's best, I am on his level, and I think I proved that at Summerfest. It's clearly not over between the two of us, but I proved that I can stand toe to toe with him, and we proved that when we basically took out every single security, hired security that tried to break us up. That was that. If given the opportunity, I don't think we would have ever stopped. I think that we would have continued to fight out backstage and the show would have been over long before we would have ever stopped fighting because that's how deep the hatred is between the two of us.
now what are your thoughts on Ted DiBiase? Going a little off topic, but we're still talking about
Right.
guys that are affiliated with Layfield Inc. What's your problem with Ted DiBiase?
Well, the thing is, it's clear that my stance on taking opportunities when you can take when they come to you is that you should take advantage of everything that comes around to you. And so when I became a part of Layfield, when I became a member of Layfield Inc, I didn't just get the money. The money wasn't the only investment I got. I also got the other members of the group. And so when we came into that, that was something that I had. And when I realized that that DiBiase, and then I realized that DiBiase, who had that same opportunity, threw it away. I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand why he did and said the things that he did, and so in the beginning I was trying to wake him up, but then after a while it just became it became a thing where now he's going after now he's going after the United States Championship or trying to, and I'm just trying to
Is that why you and JB have been screwing him out of title shot after title shot after title shot to where he can't even make it?
I mean, eventually he's gonna, one of two things is eventually gonna happen. The only two options that really can happen are either he's going to finally one up us, which has yet to happen, or he's going to get frustrated just like I did, and he's going to make a decision that's going to further him in his career. And I think that it's obvious which option is more.
See, what you're saying
more in
is,
his grasp.
if you can't beat him, join us.
I mean, it's not about joining us, but he could go to his dad anytime. He can go to the $1 Million Man and tell him that he wants that trust fund, and then his opportunities at that point are endless.
But he doesn't want to go that route. He wants to make his name.
And he doesn't have to go that route, but it's not working for him right now. So he's something's got to give.
So anyway, this past Raw, you and Samoa Joe went at it again. JBL said he wanted nothing to do with it. You wanted to continue fighting Samoa Joe. The hatred's just. How are you feeling right now after that big bump? And do you think you're going to be out for a while?
Well, if I told you that it didn't hurt to be speared off the ramp and to land on
So like
solid,
we saw what Triple H and Bobby Lashley went through.
right? It definitely was. It the thing that it's going to do for me right now is it's going to just give me time to think because, as you mentioned, I'm not going to be able to compete. I don't know how long, but in the near future, I'm not cleared to compete in WEDF. So right now, it's just going to be, I'll continue to represent Layfield Inc. in the on the business end, but that's the only thing that I can do right now.
What is Tensai's role in the group? He's
He's
apparently
you
he's
know
the
he's
Secretary of Self Defense.
right, and I really even though I'm a big guy, I'm a strong guy, I'm a powerhouse. My role in Layfield Incorporated is to be a higher up and to be one of the brains of the group. Tensai is our he's essentially like the big the muscle. When we need somebody, when we need something to be taken care of, Tensai comes in and he does it. And he does it without asking questions, and that's why we hired him is because he doesn't ask the questions that can get people into trouble. We
Now
tell
that's
him.
off topic again, but as a big man, you're quite agile for a guy your size, hitting drop kicks and diving headbutts and moves like that.
Right.
What do you think you've evolved pretty much as a performer?
I mean, I believe so, and I think that anybody who's truly successful in wrestling has to. If you go about doing, if you come in doing one thing, even if you're good at that one thing, that'll get you to a point. You have to bring something not that either hasn't been seen before or that is rare. And so
I mean,
when
you
it
can
comes
compare not just to Samoa Joe, but the late great Umaga and the legendary Samoans because of your athletic ability.
right, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you've seen my finisher, or one of the finishers that I've adapted into my arsenal, is a variation of Rikishi's, the Rikishi driver. That's actually something that I I went before I was really before I was in WEDF, when I first made the decision that I wanted to do all of this stuff. I made sure that Rikishi was one of my favorite people, so I wasn't able to train with him, but I was able to train with someone who knew all of his stuff, and so I made sure that when I got in the ring that I could do I mean people saw my size and they knew that I was going to be able to hit hard and all that, but I also wanted people to know that I would also be dangerous with my speed. So, and those were concrete. Those are decisions I made intentionally to make myself, that kind of wrestler, that kind of superstar.
Right. But anyway, when you're done with Samoa Joe, um, are there any superstars on the roster that you would like to face in any matchups? Like, who would you like to face in matches? Like, would you like to ever face people like The Rock or Dolph Ziggler or some of the other big guns?
Well, the one person that I've always respected as a competitor, whether I agree with what he says or not, and and really, this is somebody who, in kind of the opposite sense, he doesn't pay attention to what the fans say because a lot of times the fans can boo him, but he doesn't let that sway his decision making. Is John Cena, and I know that's kind of as big as it gets, but you know I think that I would love to get in the ring with him, to compete with him. Because I just have despite what people might think, I actually have a ton of respect for the dude.
You were actually shooting on John Cena a little bit on Raw, though, saying he's being crappy movies and pandering to audiences. You were shooting on pretty much everyone.
Right. Well, I mean, I had to push everybody's button. You know, it's like that's what I had to do. But I didn't say that I respected every aspect of John Cena's career. I don't think that and a lot of people will believe that in order to get to in order to further on they have to do those corporate moves like being in movies and all that stuff, going and talking to whoever. Um, but I do respect John Cena's ability in the ring.
And you were actually briefly in the ring with him at the Royal Rumble when he eliminated you with the attitude adjustment.
Right, and that was an early point in my career. Um,
Now,
and so
are you ready for John Cena yet, or is it going to still take more time?
I think it would. I mean, honestly, I'd say that it probably would take more time, but I would love to get in the ring with him right now. I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Where what it would. What would happen if I got in the ring with him.
I mean, remember when CM Punk was first in the ring with John Cena? He was losing like 3 minutes. Now he's beating him, and he's on the same level as him in WWE.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Is that I can't know I can't know where I need to go to get to John Cena status if I don't first get in the ring with him.
Right. What about facing someone like Zack Starr or Oshajax? Do you think you're ready for either one, or Oshajax specifically, man, who you've had history with?
Right.
And man, who you've compared your career to?
Right. And it's hard for me not to compare my career to him. We signed our contracts in WEDF on the same day, so I've always looked at him as I've always kind of secretly had this mindset of where am I in comparison to him, and um, am I doing better or worse? And if I'm not doing as good as he's doing, then what can I do to push myself past that? And it's just one of those things that's been inevitable. And so, if the opportunity ever came that I had to get in the ring with Oshajax and compete with him one-on-one, I would actually like that a lot, because it would be the true test of who's farther along in their WEDF careers.
And at one point, Oshajax was on a higher level facing Danny Jackpot, and then you were on another level. It seems like you two are trading momentum. Oshajax had that reign as the Intercontinental Champion, lost that. Then you were on a roll, being in the title match with Jeff Hardy. It seems like when you two just seem to outdo each other.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's I think in the very beginning, despite the bad blood we had between each other, it was a friendly level of competition. But it's at a point now where it's kind of a pride thing for me. I have to know that I'm better than him, and I have to know that, and so whatever it takes for me to prove that, that's what I'm going to do.
Right. So, anyone else who you would like to face on the roster?
Not specifically. I mean, there are a lot of people that I don't like on the roster.
Who would you not want to face ever?
You know what? for the sake of my career not shortening, and because of the mean streak that he's been on recently, I would say that I would not like to get in the ring again with Brock Lesnar. I don't have anything to.
Oshajax and the Undertaker.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, and I don't have anything to prove against him. So that's somebody that I do not want to get in the ring with.
Now, speaking of Lesnar, do you think you could break the streak?
Break
the Undertaker's streak.
The Undertaker streak.
Yes. Do you think you could lay a challenge, or you're not ready yet?
The fact that I have to think about that answer means that I'm not ready. Because if I was ready, then I'd be able to tell you without a shadow of a doubt that I was ready. I've seen what he's capable of. I mean, I've seen what he's done to people that are twice as good as me on a bad day.
It's what happened to Goldberg at WrestleMania 2. was
I was
having a
I
sting at the first
right.
match.
I helped commentate that. I was there for that. So I've seen what Undertaker becomes when it's at when it's that time of the year. Um, and at this given moment, I'm not on that level yet.
Would you like to be
Um,
on that level as a performer?
Absolutely. If I, you know, if given the opportunity to, uh, if I was presented the opportunity to face the Undertaker at WrestleMania, um, I would go into it with complete confidence. If I walk in believing that if with any doubt in my mind, that I've already lost the match because Undertaker knows he knows what he can do.
Right.
So,
Um, continue on. Are there any other goals that you'd like to do in the WEDF? Like becoming a champion, moving up? Do you think you'd like to become WEDF champion eventually?
absolutely. I mean, I've already proven that I'm hungry for the title by facing Jeff Hardy, earning that opportunity. Um, you know, right now, yeah. I mean, on top of beating certain people, like my number one goal is to become the WEDF champion.
Right.
To become a world champion in this company, because not only will it put me in that small group of people that have won world championships, but and if you look at my past history, it'll actually put me in an even smaller list because winning a world championship in WEDF will make me a Grand Slam champion.
Right. And that's the same thing that's eluding Oshajaks and the suspect, I believe.
Yeah.
So, last thing I'd like to ask you is, what was the main reason why you stepped down from commentary?
I mean, it goes into what I just answered with the last question. My goal is to become WEDF champion, and if I'm going to do that, I need to put everything that I have into focusing on that. And when I take time away to commentate SmackDown, or if I take time to commentate, like a show like Summerfest, or any of those big events, um, that's time wasted. And I need to take every second that I can and focus on what I need to do to make myself a world champion.
So your reason for kind of like Oshajaks were in the sense is, no main eventer full time has been a commentator.
Right? Yeah. I mean that statement's true, and there's a lot to do with it. Um, yeah. So I just I know that if I'm going to ever become a world champion in this company, then I need to put 100% of everything that I have into making that happen, and that involves not doing commentary to make sure that I have that extra time.
Right. So basically, is you're putting your focus first over like your comment over commentary.
Right.
So anything you would like to add to this interview? Um, like anything else you'd like to add to this segment?
I think that I pretty much answered it all. I talked about what I've done, where I've come from, and what I plan on doing, and in the immediate future, I'm going to continue to prove myself as a dominant superstar.
Alrighty then, you've heard it from the un-Hawaiian Hawaiian himself. For Matt Eichorn, this is the voice of the WEDF Frank Dawg. We're glad you have enjoyed this interview or listened to the whole thing. And we will see you for the next interview. Hopefully, we will have someone else on the roster, maybe Evan O'Shea or Smokey or Wu Tang Man or someone else on the WEDF interview segment. So for Matt Eichorn, this is Frank Dawg. Good night. Also, butts.
Also buds.